Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Stage C for our afternoon sessions here. And so our next session, we're going to have Peter Neckel from CBTW talking about AI and how it transforms wealth management. Something that I think is really interesting, right? We're all here in Luxembourg. It's the highest GDP per capita in the EU. So I think this is a particularly relevant topic. And CBTW, they have 900 plus clients, 68% of which are from the Fortune 500. And so they have a really, really good vantage point on the future of these industries and how AI is transforming these things. So with that, thank you for joining us. Make sure you tune in with your headphones through the app to listen. And let's welcome Peter to the stage. Give him a round of applause, everyone. Woo!
Hello. Welcome. Wealth management, as in the introduction was, so it's a very, very interesting field where we are doing data analytics. And let's start with the customer perspective of data analytics. So why would investors switch their financial advisor? What do you think? If you look at the graph, the two first things are really obvious. I mean, that's something we would have predicted, right? There's something like high costs, weak portfolio performance. So this is what we expect of people being in wealth management and saying, if there's a weak portfolio performance, the costs are too high, okay, I'm switching my wealth manager, of course. I'm paying a lot of money for them, a lot of money, and he is not bringing his performance. So, but look at the other things. Changing needs not considered, infrequent communication, poor listening skills. So obviously, wealth management is a very individualized service. And this is something where the personal situation of people can adapt, can shift, can change. And if this is not taken into account by a relationship manager, then people are saying, this is not my wealth manager for me that I am in relationship with. So to widen a little bit the perspective, there's something where you can divide up your customer relationship perhaps in several phases. So the first phase is broadening the customer case. So what is there when you are a new customer and coming to a wealth manager? What is the expectations? What is this phase characteristic by? And then there comes deepening customer relationships. So these are clients that are already familiar, loyal customers with the relationship manager and having also their relationship established and having to face their changes in their personal life to adapt and to decide, is this the right relationship for me? And then the third phase, where there's something like churn management, where the clients perhaps are thinking, this is not my real loyalty to the client that I had for all the time being here. So recruitment, retention and development, and recovery. These are the three phases that I have to cover as a wealth manager to manage my clients. And in wealth management, long customer relationships are normal. Like 12, 15, 20 years is the normal relationship length for clients that are customers in wealth management. So if you want to develop these relationships, you have to look at the whole relationship and all the phases that you have. And what we see in practice is that there are analytics and AI only covers small parts of the relationship. Something like next best offers, something like cross-selling, here a little bit customer value project, here a little churn project, etc. So this is something that we have to look into the whole client relationship. And if we switch back to the client perspective, imagine a typical client in wealth management has different fields of actions in his lifetime. This is all related to his personal life, family, business. Let's think about succession. He has a son, a daughter, and wants to transfer his wealth one time to them. This is a huge process that depends on the individual relationship that you have and the individual phase that you have. Retirement also. Do you want to retire more, earlier, later? And what is your source of wealth? What is your idea of generating and making this wealth overstay the whole relationship to their family, to the next generation. This is one of the biggest topics in wealth management, and the key question is, how can you support this with AI analytics to understand more about this process? Let's look at one example. Typically, the wealth planning starts for many, many customers after a typical trigger event. So this is one of the first tasks that a wealth manager has to look at. What are these trigger events? And being aware of these trigger events. So this is a small example of wealth planning with a client. And if you can see and look at the tasks, there are some things that are dependent on each other, on the liquid money that he has to obtain to purchase a vacation apartment, for example, or to make his home renovation. And this is a plan that lasts for 15, 20, 25 years, and that is not stable. This planning has to be revised after several months, years, and continuously. And this was only just one short example. There are many of these trigger events to consider. So if you take for one moment the client perspective and not the product and wealth management perspective, you can see many of these events, and they are very, very individually, starting earlier for some clients, starting later for some clients. There's so many sources of wealth, and so many wealth possibilities of development and individual family situations that you have to consider all these things individually per client. So this is a huge task. Imagine that for big wealth managers, they have, let's say, 1,500 relationship managers, from each relationship manager having 50 to 80 clients. Imagine what this is like. If you look at this individually for every client, this is not really possible for people to having all this on their screen. So how can support AI in this special topic? And let me show you one example that we did for one big wealth manager in the past. So the basic idea was, when a client relationship is beginning, there's a normal course of customer behavior in the path that you can see from data. Having like asset allocation topics, a special risk profile, having mandate types, different mandate types. For example, there's, let's say, a client that has 10 or 15% of his wealth in discretionary mandate, the rest in advisory mandate, his transaction behavior, communication behavior, etc. And this is, let's say, stated analytically as the normal course, the normal behavior of the client. And then there's a comparison, analytical comparison to the current customer behavior. So how does the customer behave now, and how did he behave in the last 1 to 3 years analytically? So, and there's a normal range of normal behavior that explains his normal information that we have from this client. And we look permanently, is there a significant deviation? And if yes, do we know a reason for this? Do we have a change in personal circumstances that we know? Is there a different tax situation in the past that changed? Is there something like relocation, retirement, succession planning, etc.? So is there a reason for a change so that we can understand it? And if yes, what are the consequences? And the third phase is personalized communication. So this information about the deviation is an alert that is given to the relationship manager saying, look, here's a special situation that is different from the typical customer behavior. And now the interesting thing is, this is not something that is compared to other customers, because the individual history of client wealth is very, very individual. So we do not make customer segments, segmentations, etc. We do not compare this individual behavior that you can see on the left side from a typical client. We do not compare it to other clients. We look at his one and only history and say, this is the normal behavior for this specific client. And for him, some transactions, like 10 transactions per month, is a lot, because normally he has 2 to 3 transactions, to make it simple in one example. And for another client, 10 transactions per month won't be a big deal because this is his normal behavior. So we look at the normal behavior of each client, comparing it to himself, let's say, and looking if there are some deviations, and look if we have in the data history an explanation for that, or perhaps in a contact note, there's a text situation that has changed, and this can be a driver for a change in behavior of the client. And then you have different options of making personalized communication, giving this information to the relationship manager, saying, here, can you perhaps judge if this is something where you have to react on, to make a meeting with the client, to send additional information, to offer him something, or just to have an individual reaction on this, what we call, let's say, a monitoring of change or of trigger events in wealth management. So this was just one example of how AI can help in wealth management. We have lots of topic doing, and there's lots of things that you can do in hyper-personalize the relationship to the clients. If you need more information or want another example or a little bit deepening the examples, there's a white paper that we gave out on this topic, and there's a free download if you want. You can scan the QR code and then download the white paper. There's much more details on the case that you can see and read. And if you have any questions, you can come to our booth. We are just there around the corner at booth P30. And let's discuss about your topics that you have. Perhaps you have different experiences or other topics that we want to discuss. Thank you very much.